G'day, AJ Mahar here. Again on the reality of impossibility of love, healthy love in relationship to somebody with borderline personality or them with you, to people who are empaths, to codependents, to people with maybe unbeknownst to you some adverse childhood experience in your own life, in your own childhood that you might know something about, but maybe you've just never thought about it in a way that you really need to think and discover more about it, because it doesn't mean that you had horrible parents or that something went really wrong, but there can be, like, nobody gets out of childhood unscathed. Let me put it that way. So it's a degree to which there might be some type of issue there. And so with people believing that they can so love a person with BPD, or that the person with BPD is so loving you, that this is like a, or like this is your soulmate, or like with narcissists, but some people apply this to people with BPD as well, when they're in a relationship to someone with BPD. In relationships with narcissists, people talk about, but that's my twin flame. So this twin flame soulmate idea gets people really locked into something that it really isn't what that's not what it's about, and there isn't healthy love there. And so there is a thing which many people have, clients mention it to me all the time, imago therapy. And, why can't, so it's this idea that, you're going to get your own reparative experience with a person with BPD or even a narcissist in your life. Not that people think that consciously, right? But that this is your twin flame or your soulmate, that you were born to be with this person, that you were born to love that person. That's not really true. I mean, some people may believe that, and if that's what you believe, well, I respect that you believe that, but like that's probably hurting you more than you know. And so people then get into this fight. This is people on the other side of people with BPD or narcissists. They get into this fight, and I don't mean you're fighting, but you're in this fight within yourself that this person has to be the person for you, and you have to help them no matter what it takes so that they can love you because you love them, because you, whether you're aware of it or not, you are looking for your own reparative experience from childhood. Now, to a lesser degree than somebody with BPD. But this is what drives so much of this way of thinking, and this, I believe it's a mistaken belief, that somebody is your only soulmate, that you're born to love just this one person through hell or high water. And no matter how much conflict and trauma and chaos and pain, see, there's nothing, healthy love has nothing to do with the drama, the chaos, the conflict, the pain. There's, it's not like the more you fight through that stuff, if you can even get through it, because usually it's just cyclical on both sides. And you can't really get through it, but there is this belief people have that if they can just fight hard enough, just fight or stay in the conflict and work hard enough, that somehow magically you will derive from this person with BPD or the narcissist this love of the twin flame, of the soulmate, of this just amazing sort of imago match of like your reparative experience, and they heal. This is the biggest recipe for disaster in people's lives, and under the guise of quote love unquote. And I just wanted to say, I was just looking at this just to be a little bit more specific, that this is interesting to me, but imago, right, is an idealized concept of a loved one, and it's formed in childhood, and it's retained unaltered into adult life and in adult life. So people on the other side of people with BPD, not all people fit into this exact, like I work with a lot of clients who come to this understanding that it's more they've been looking for this, etc. I wouldn't say that's everybody who's in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline, and you didn't know what you were getting into till later. But so this idealized concept of a loved one formed in childhood, and it's retained unaltered in adulthood. So it still needs its own level of reparation in you. Some modicum amount, it's important, but it's not the same as BPD or narcissistic personality. But so in people that are empaths or codependents, or maybe there's really no accurate label to just put there in the middle of all that. Having this imago idealized loved one from childhood, this unadulterated, unchanging belief about a relationship or something that was needed more, and that this might be subconscious, from a parent, or maybe you were failed in empathy, some, maybe not always, but maybe often, or maybe throughout your childhood, and you didn't develop BPD or anything. But the thing is, then if you're believing this person, what this really is the duality of people that experience some amount of adverse childhood experience with a parent or parents in their own childhood, and then they have that imago, that idealized concept of that parent, that so the other side is never challenged. The wounding, which is to a lesser degree than what people with BPD go through, but that wounding is never challenged by people who are codependent or empaths, or maybe don't like either word, but whatever the case, and are really wanting to make this relationship with a borderline or narcissist work because it's either your soulmate or your twin flame, and it's all meant to be. This is coming from your childhood. It's coming from something that you idealized about a parent, because unlike people with BPD where all this splitting happens and the fragmentation of ego, this doesn't happen to people with a lesser degree of adverse childhood experience. So it's very still wounding and hurtful, but not to the same degree. So you've kept the idealized aspect of something to do with a parent who actually wounded you to some degree. And now that's what the borderline or the narcissist is representing subconsciously in your life for many people. This is not healthy love. This is not the pursuit of some ideal of twin flame or soulmate, and that there's nobody else in the world for you. And these beliefs in this narrative, and sometimes people are living this out in ways where they're getting tremendously rewounded and wounded more in their lives, psychologically, emotionally, and it can impact physical health as well, without even knowing why. There's this duality for many people who have been or are in relationships with a narcissist or a borderline. And more with the narcissist, it's this twin flame idea, but the borderline seems to be more about soulmate. I'm not saying there's no such thing as a soulmate. I don't happen to think there's any such thing as a twin flame. But this idea that there's only one soulmate or one person that you are destined to be with, destined to love, no matter what, I think really this needs to be challenged. And I know some people won't like me saying this, but I do say it with empathy, and I do say it to be helpful and not critical or judgmental at all. And so imago, this is interesting also that its definition outside of anything to do with psychology or human beings and their relationships and relating is the final development stage of an insect after undergoing metamorphosis. Now, why would I add that in here? Well, not only because it's another definition of imago, but if you think about, so I'm not comparing you to an insect, okay, right? But the insect's final stage, this is a stage of development when they're undergoing metamorphosis. So what's happening to you in a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist, or on the other side of them, or as the ex now, or it was a parent or whomever in your life? What's happening, but especially in romantic love, yes. What's happening to you as you're seeking? You have a need still to go through a metamorphosis, a change, a healing process of your own, wherein you still have this idealized something about a parent from childhood, not like people with BPD do, but separate from that. And this idealized concept that you formed of a parent who likely hurt you in some way, to some degree, doesn't get changed. You're living with it, and you bring it into these kind of relationships, and nobody knows this, and this isn't conscious, but I think that this is something that people need. I'm just watching the time here. I should really put glasses on. So people need to really think about this more, but it first means that if you're in a relationship with a narcissist or a borderline, and if you're ascribing to this belief and or whatever else you might describe it as, of soulmate, and there's only one, or twin flame, and you were born to love that person, you gotta really sort of look into that some more, because some people are forwarding it as like, yeah, that's what it's all about. No, it's not. It's not, because it comes from a place that, I know a lot of people don't like the word codependent, but it's like you have a need inside of you, whether you realize it or not, in this narrative of what is imago, what is, that many people are seeking reparative experiences through this person that is object other representation for you of an idealized concept about a parent that you've never looked at the other side of the parent. Or you might know, I have so many clients, they do know. When I ask the questions, they're like, okay, wait a minute, yeah, my mother was kind of like this and that happened. And it doesn't mean that mother was horrible, or it's all mother's fault, or could have been father. But you need to look at more. This is why I do the family of origin work and self-differentiation with people who've been in relationships with narcissists or borderlines. But I just want to reiterate for you, there's nothing healthy about that love. There's nothing healthy about that pursuit that you might not even be consciously aware of. But if you're believing in the twin flame narrative, if you're believing in the soulmate thing and everything is destined, you're keeping yourself stuck in a horrifically painful place that you have your own misinterpretation or misunderstanding or a perception of love that's really hurting you and keeping you in the way of getting out of that hurt. And for empaths, this is so true. The empathy that you continue to feel for the narcissist or the borderline, maybe even a psychopath, it's got to do with this concept that has not been changed or healed from childhood in something that wounded you to some degree or other. And so then you're wanting to be the rescuer to the narcissist or the borderline or the psychopath, because if you can just get them to come on board and get it and you can make it work, you too can get your reparative peace. And that is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, but that I see is really the case with more clients I work with than not, and have been working with for 30 years. That's like thousands of people, I don't know how many, but thousands at least. And so this is something people need to think more about. Again, probably not a popular message, but I share this and I say this because it's based on not only what I see on the internet, not only what I read here and there on both sides of this, but also that I have so many clients coming to me after these relationships have broken up. Maybe they're getting hoovered, maybe it's on again, off again, maybe they're really longing to get back with that person because they think their reparative peace, some people are actually aware of this, their reparative peace for their own emotional health, psychological health, or wholeness is in that person somehow. And if you don't get it in this relationship, you're never going to get it. These are all a lot of nevers and absolute and extreme thoughts or beliefs, and you really got to come back to the center. And there's no avoiding the pain that you need to travel through in a healing process. That I work with a lot of clients through this, and sometimes it involves adjusting beliefs, yes, and sometimes, but as you see fit, right? It's not up to me to tell you what you believe or shouldn't believe. But so this is something that keeps a lot of people, and they're not aware of this consciously, in these relationships with people, or still not being able to get over the relationships with a narcissist, a psychopath, or a borderline, sometimes even years later. And this is something that it's not healthy love. It's something, and object relations that I'm always talking about doesn't just apply to people with BPD. Object relations is a theory of human relating that, we all experience mother as the first object, whether that goes well or whether it doesn't go well. And what happens in the 75% of those diagnosed with BPD, what happens to people and how they develop narcissistic personality disorder, there's object relations. And so what is the healthier model of that many of you who might be in this soulmate, twin flame kind of belief and narrative in your life, there's a reason for that, and you need to really look deeper into that. And I'm out here to help you do that work and exploration if you're interested, if I resonate with you. But the thing is, it's so, this is what makes people really think that they have to help this other person, the borderline, the narcissist, the psychopath. How? So that, you might not realize, and I don't mean to make it sound like you're selfish, it's just a compelling form of a repetition compulsion, actually, that isn't the same as in BPD. But yes, for people with this going on, you have a healthier sense of object constancy. You have object constancy to object permanence, whereas people with BPD have, in object relations, lack of object constancy and no object permanence. So there's still vast differences between who I'm speaking to right now, people who are in these relationships with borderlines or narcissists or maybe a psychopath, with this twin flame belief and or the soulmate and the destiny of it all. It really has something to do with something you're not aware of yet, or you haven't looked at, or got into a healing process around something that happened in your own childhood that, yes, you will benefit from the reparation of in your own life, the healing of. But that's relationships, when they are healthy enough to begin with. Yes, they can help people to grow more and learn more about themselves and each other. But this imago match, this idea of twin flame, soulmate, this is a person for me, I'm going to get my repairs, I'm going to fix, they're going to help fix, change them, and it's all going to be one of, and it was destined to be this way. No, this is just not the way it is, and this is not a healthy view that's going to get you to a place where you are loving healthily enough or being loved in any healthy way at all. It's just a recipe for unhealthy love, to really worse than that, where people believe that love is something that you need to earn or fight for or go through, conflict and drama and chaos and be treated really horribly to get. And what healthy love is just nothing that can be further from that truth. So you might at first, some people, if they watch this video, you find it, you might really not like what I'm saying here. But I hope that you'll listen and think about it, because this is what's keeping a lot of people stuck in the cognitive dissonance in the relationships, but in the suffering to cognitive dissonance, being blocked from their healing journey after getting out of a relationship with a borderline, narcissist, or a psychopath. So this goes across all of cluster B, for those on the other side of people with cluster B, in relationships with them. And it's really important that you start to look at this if you haven't already. Family of origin work and self-differentiation, which I do with clients, is so important, because the seeds of what has got you in this loop of believing what love is and how you need to get this other person healed and changed and everything so you can experience it. There are no imago matches to be had with cluster B at all. And it's a part of how you've idealized something in a loved one, usually a parent, that you never looked at the other side of, and that's different from BPD, but you never looked at the other side of, and you've never healed, and now you're looking for it. It's like looking for, quote, love in all the wrong places, because these notions of love and what it is so not what healthy love is, and people are in just worlds of ginormous hurt and agony because of these beliefs and or these efforts and the big, the unending ways in which people will give and overgive to trying to fix the borderline, the narcissist, or not realizing you're with a psychopath, whatever the case may be, because there's just something inside of you from your childhood. In most people's cases who don't have cluster B, it's not even, can be painful, could be formidable in your development, but it's not like you lost yourself to it. It's not like it's going to subsume you. It's a process that can set you free and can teach you so much more about what healthy love really is and what you really do deserve. So don't limit yourself. Don't get stuck in these beliefs. Don't keep repeating your own cycles of trying to rescue the borderline, the narcissist, or even a psychopath, because you're just you're, well, you know, you're not being very kind and loving to yourself if that's what you're doing, but you might not realize that's what you're doing, or you might not realize, or maybe it isn't a soulmate twin flame narrative belief that you've got going on or that you're aware of. But I have had so many clients over the years, not just recently, who come to me with this idea that, but they could have got their reparation too, and sometimes they know what they need, and sometimes that comes up later in the process, but there can be no imago matches. There are no twin flames. There are no soulmates with broken, wounded people who don't even know who they are. And more to the point, psychopaths, forget it. That's just a whole other ball of wax. And they don't love, etc., no conscience, and, you know, they're pretty nihilistic. And narcissists, well, it's the gamut, but malignant narcissism, forget it. Narcissistic, you know, it's not about love, unfortunately, at all. So this should give you a little window. If you haven't thought of it this way before, maybe you have. Maybe this will be a refresher, maybe a reminder, maybe something you still won't want to hear, but you'll think about it a little bit. There are lots of ways people are keeping themselves stuck in all this agony on the other side of a cluster B and not knowing why. And just my saying it isn't going to make a big change. It might help some people, but this is the work that people need. They need to explore this in therapy. If you're stuck in one of these relationships and you can't get out, there's a good reason to start your therapy right now if you haven't already. And then if you're out of it, but like you can't let go of it, the obsessive thinking, you know, everything, and you're missing them, and the cognitive dissonance and all that suffering, you really need your own healing and recovery journey. And I do family of origin work and self-differentiation, and it helps you to get this reparative work done, something that you do need to do from your childhood. In people who are not cluster B personality disordered, it's formidable, it's important, and it's causing you a lot of pain in the ways in which you're relating to the people that you are. And many people might not know they were, you know, the person was borderline or narcissist or whatever before they got the relationship, but many people sort of do. And then there's the aspect of the wounded inner child that you might not be in touch with, that's like a Geiger counter to find the next person that in any way emulates, or is familiar, wounded territory or wounding territory that you're about to enter that you don't realize consciously, that your inner child that you might not be so in tune with, people with BPD totally are separate from, you might just have never kind of thought of it this way. The inner child's like a Geiger counter to find familiar, because the hope is there on that level of, you know, in your subconsciousness of finding an experience that's going to take away something that's been hurting you for most of your life. So you need to take better care of yourself. You need to think about this again. It will benefit you. I hope this was helpful. Take care.